Okay, I'm just shooting a very quick progress report on where I am with my current Raspberry Pi builds. The one that you're looking at right now is the Raspberry Pi 3 in the 99p Chinese knockoff case that I bought, which is a bootleg case of a slightly more expensive one. So as a quick overview, these holes on top I drilled super quickly. It's supposed to be in the shape of a cube or something. I did it in like 20 minutes. I honestly thought, there we go. Yeah. There we go. I honestly thought the case would shatter the moment I started drilling. So these holes are, like, if I knew it would be as good as it was, I probably would have taken a little bit more time, done it a little bit better. And also inside the case you can see there's an orange or like copper heatsink on the CPU there, which I added, again not super expensive. The side is clear so you can see right through. That's the power, the HDMI, and that would be the headphone jack, but I turned it into a kill switch with a little bit of soldering, which you can see through here. So this orange cable is, I've basically soldered the headphone jack, which ends here, to one of these GPIO pins that come down here. So yeah, I can just use it as a kill switch. The only other thing I've added, well, also I've drilled some more holes down here so that when the heat escapes through the top, the law of thermodynamics says that the heat has to come in through somewhere, so the heat's going to go in through the bottom and then work its way out the top. I've added these clear, because the whole case was clear, I added some clear rubber feet to stop it slipping, and over here we have the 64 gig micro HD, was it HD, no, what is it, yeah, HCSD, 64 gig micro SD card. Other than that, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's got the Ethernet 4 thing, standard Raspberry Pi 3, easy access to the thing. Yeah, it's pretty simple, and hopefully, I mean, for size comparison, 1 second. As far as size comparison goes, here is a standard DualShock 4, so you can see it's rather small. It is, yeah, very, very small, non-stick, the rubber feet. Yeah, so hopefully I can throw up some footage of what that looks like if I can get my tripod working, and then I'll show you what I've been working on after that. Okay, just wanted a quick overview of the kind of things that I've got going into it. All of these controllers are either USB or wireless, and providing that you tell the Raspberry Pi what's coming in and then configure it properly, it'll pretty much accept anything. So right here I've got the USB SNES controller from the boys at the Pi Hut. I've got a couple of those, they're really good. The build quality is not brilliant, but for what you're paying for it, it's astounding, the quality. Wireless, standard wireless USB keyboard and mouse goes in with a wireless dongle that you can just plug straight into the USB, and that works brilliantly. Here I've got a standard 6-button Mega Drive controller. It's a bit dark, a little bit. Okay, standard 6-button Mega Drive controller. Again, USB works fine. Here I have a Saturn controller. It's really good because it's got the M and R buttons. Personally, my favourite controller. I've got a little bit of a USB extender there, so I can use it on the other side of the room. Got a couple of those. They are really, really nice. Standard DualShock 3, that can be configured via the Bluetooth, and it works perfectly. DualShock 4, same deal. And my other go-to, if I'm playing, I don't know, PlayStation or Nintendo 64, I love, like, personally, the Xbox 360. So I've got an Xbox 360 USB wired controller, and I play all the N64 games, PlayStation sometimes, games on there, because I love the feel of the Xbox 360 controller. You can, if you wish, buy USB N64 controllers. I've ordered a USB NES controller, so that'll be turning up soon. But yeah, my go-to is really the SNES one. the Saturn one, which I absolutely love. The D-pad is amazing, buttons feel pretty good, and the Xbox 360. Okay, just the quick overview of the Raspberry Pi 3 now. I'm just going to show the boot up sequence, the UI that I've installed, and basically the consoles and games that I've got running at the moment. Okay, so that intro sequence was made by a guy on a forum. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm pretty sure he made this this UI as well. Okay, so very quickly, when I first built the Raspberry Pi 3, it was essentially as an Amiga console, because I just wanted an Amiga again. So you'll see that this is primarily Amiga focused, but it does loads of other stuff. So the Amiga's first, and it's got, as you can see, 4,346. It says games, it means disk images available. So yeah, that was my primary focus. Across we have arcade, and you'll see the background swishes and changes with each thing, and there's obviously 52 in there. They've got the Atari 2600, the Atari 7800, no 5200 because I can't stand the controller. There's the Lynx, Atari Lynx, the Nintendo Game & Watch, those are the little LCD screens, and there's also some LED screens. It's not just Game & Watch, it's other LED and LCD games in there. Sega Game Gear, which I absolutely love, the original Nintendo Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color, the Sega Master System, the Sega Mega Drive, the Nintendo 64. Just so you're aware, I'm actually controlling this with the Xbox 360 controller, just so I can show you everything. The Nintendo DS. The Nintendo DS you would assume would be really hard to emulate, and to a certain extent it is, but you use, for the touchpad, you use mouse, like your mouse controller, which would essentially be in your right hand, and in your left hand is like any USB controller, like the SNES controller, the Mega Drive controller, anything. You don't need a specific USB controller to play a specific thing. You can play any console with any controller and it will adapt, and if it can't adapt you can just configure the controls. Neo Geo, that's the AVS and MVS version. The original NES, Neo Geo Pocket Color, MS-DOS, so it's basically running DOSBox at this point, so anything that runs in DOSBox runs well on here. I use it for a lot of old, like 286, 386, 486 games on there. PC Engine is a fantastic console, also known as the TurboGrafx 16, and I've discovered loads of really cool Japanese and US games on there, which I've never even experienced before. Die Hard is fantastic. Never came out in the States or the UK, but it's phenomenal. Ports, right, so in the port section are games that have been specifically made for the Raspberry Pi. So they're ports of, so you can see in the pictures here, like there's a Mario game, Rick Dangerous, Minecraft has been ported to it, Wolfenstein, Prince of Persia, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D. I could show that. PS1 is a fantastic version of PlayStation 1 emulator running on there. You've got various emulators for various different machines, so if a ROM doesn't work on one emulator, switch the emulator. You can do that per ROM or per machine. It's really, really easy to set up. RegPie, this is the operating system I'm running here. Works really well. These are its options. ScumVM, so all the LucasArts stuff, some of the Sierra stuff, anything that runs in ScumVM on a desktop will run in here. Sega 32X, that weird mushroom shape add-on, that runs fantastically here. Sega CD, so again the other add-on for the Mega Drive, it was called the Mega CD in the UK. Any CD based stuff like Night Trap, Sewer Shark, Sonic CD, and also Snatcher, which is the reason I installed it, works great. Super Nintendo, standard Super Nintendo. Virtual Boy, so I think it just shows the left eye, and you can change it from either black and red to white and black. ZX Spectrum, never really had a ZX Spectrum. I basically installed this just to muck around with it, see what all the fuss was about. It's okay, it's, fairly standard. Alright, so I'm not going to show the Amiga stuff, the arcade stuff. Alright, you can see when you go into menu, it kind of scrolls up. What I've done is I've added all the box art on the side. So you can see when I scroll down, it shows all the box art. You've got a description down in the bottom right, and to execute the game, you will just tap A. But that works across all. So we've got Atari 2600. There's all the Atari 2600 boxes. You have to make sure they're the right boxes and the right description. 7800, all the 7800 boxes. Links, Game & Watch. So when I was saying about the Game & Watch, some of these aren't necessarily just Nintendo. I mean, it has got the Nintendo ones in there, but also the tabletops and everything else. It emulates real nice. Game Gear, again, all the Game Boy ones, again, Game Boy Advance. Okay, so you can see. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and I'll just show real quick clips of some of the games.
From the castle, I'm Bridget Hickman. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool. Peach.
Calendar kick ass and chew bubble gum.
Damia, Visor, Grunt. You have lost the lead.
Okay, so that's the Raspberry Pi 3, which I've built and I'm quite happy with, and it's got, you know, loads of stuff going on it. And I think of this one as the console version of what I built, but I wanted to build something more of a novelty, something a little bit smaller and something that it has a purpose and it has a use, but at the same time it's, again, more of a novelty and more of a toy. So I bought a Raspberry Pi Zero and I ended up building this, which, if you think this one is small, this one is nano. Essentially, it's a Raspberry Pi Zero, let's put that there, a Raspberry Pi Zero in a slightly more expensive case. When I say slightly more expensive, it was a £5. But I could have still bought 5 of these for one of these, but I didn't fancy waiting. It has this cool little, it's called a Joy Bonnet by a company called Adafruit, and essentially it is an sort of, it looks analog but it's not, it's like a sliding 8-way joystick with your A, B, X, Y, start, select, and then L and R up here, built into this little built into this little form factor, and it's just a little PCB with a connection port for the GPIO pins. So what I needed to do was get some, because the Raspberry Pi Zero doesn't come with those pins on it, I had to basically attach the pins. You can either solder them or buy a hammer header, which is a solderless pin array, which is what I did. And then I also added these little black rubber feet under here, so you can put quite a bit of pressure on the PCB before it gives. Inside is Raspberry Pi Zero W version, which is the Wi-Fi enabled one. So you don't have to USB anything across. On the outside you've got a HDMI out, power in, and a USB in, so you can use keyboards or other joysticks. But because it's Wi-Fi, you can connect a DualShock 3 or DualShock 4, or I think any wireless controller to it. I connect a wireless keyboard and mouse to it, so I've got keyboard and mouse input. So as you can see, this thing is properly small, like really small, and yet works and functions just like, I mean, what's on top is a SNES pad, but I mean, it will work with, currently what I've got on here is, I'll throw up some footage, but I've got Atari Lynx, SNES, Mega Drive, Nintendo, Master System, Game Gear, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Neo Geo Pocket, some arcade games, and I think that's it. But yeah, essentially it is an entire console in something that is smaller than a cigarette lighter. I mean, it is very, very small. And it is complete. That is exactly what it is. So let me throw it up against the DualShock 4 again. Like, that's how small it is. It is ridiculously small. Okay, lastly, I'm quickly going to show you how the differences between the way I've got the Pi 3 set up and the way I've got the Pi Nano set up. Just a quick heads up, the Pi Nano is essentially somewhere in between the power of a Raspberry Pi 1 and a Raspberry Pi 2. It doesn't have the full grunt of the Raspberry Pi 3, so it can't do Nintendo 64, PlayStation, things like that. It can do a few 32-bit systems. The Game Boy Advance it does really well, but none of the sort of heavy lifting 64-bit stuff. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly plug it in, show you the boot up sequence, which is slightly different, and the UI, which is slightly different. It's not necessarily tethered to this, it's just the way I've got it set up at the minute. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug in the HDMI, and then the power goes in here. And you should see it start booting. I've got a slight overscan problem which I haven't fixed yet. It takes seconds, but I just haven't got around to doing it yet. So you'll see it cut off slightly the side of the screen, and it'll cut off some of the bottom of the screen as well. And it's got the same video. It hasn't got the long video intro that the 3 has. I'm actually going to shorten the video intro to the 3. I'm running this on a smaller monitor. It can run on any monitor. I can run this on a 60-inch, 4K TV if I wanted to. It'll scale real nice. Obviously it won't output in 4K, but it'll just, what I'm saying is it will match the resolution of anything you throw it into. Pretty much. And if not, you can set the resolution. So I'm only running it on a small TV because this is the small tester TV that I run this on. So you can see there's a slight overscan problem here. It's just cutting off the bottom. It's nothing major. Same rule applies though. Where are we? Right, so I've done all the box art again. So we've got Sega Game Gear box art, Game Boy box art, Game Boy Advance box art, so on and so forth. So on here we have currently, and you can see I'm using this little Adafruit Joy hat. It's really nice. I like it a lot. So we've got some arcade games, Atari Lynx, Game Gear, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Master System, Mega Drive, Neo Geo, Nintendo, Neo Geo Pocket, PC Engine. That's the setup system. 32X, Nintendo. So let's just go straight in, I guess. Come on. And let's go down to, I can quick skip if I go down here. Let's go to the, what should we play? Okay, hang on, here we go. Super Mario World, why not? that was a little thing I set up as well. Whenever you launch a game, it shows the box art, just so you know what you've launched, in case you forget. Also, if it doesn't have box art, because I can't scrape for all the box art, what I've done is I've set up a generic screen that plays just the system that you're playing. Okay. I'll play again. There we go. Let's just do it right over here. Grab this guy and throw him. Wow. Alright. So as you can see, this little hat works surprisingly well, but if you don't want to do that, so if you don't want to use the hat, or you want to play 2 players at the same time, you totally can. Player 2 can either go in via a small USB cable into this other port, or it can connect. Player 2 can connect wirelessly, or player 3 or player 4 can all connect wirelessly via the Wi-Fi inside, or sorry, the Bluetooth inside. Let's quickly go to something else. What should we play? Mega Drive. Let's do Sonic the Hedgehog. There we go. So Sonic the Hedgehog. Once I press the right button. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the way this turned out. It's so small, and you'd think it would be uncomfortable, but it's really not. It's actually surprisingly comfortable. The cables don't get in the way that much because it's not something that you would have, you know, under here. You've got plenty of room for your fingers under here. Let's go. What happens there? So again, pretty responsive. Again, it's not an analog joystick, it is a digital one. But yeah, so I am super happy with the way. Let's get that in focus. Yeah. Yeah, I'm super happy with the way this turned out. It's really small, and like I say, it's more of a toy and a novelty, but like you can see, it works well. It is a 16 gigabyte micro SD HC SD card in there, which is enough for thousands of games. It's already got a couple of thousand games on it, so you can always add more. I'm gonna pardon me, concentrate on Game Boy Advance and things like that, but this is something small and portable. My next build is going to have a battery and a screen, so it's going to be like a small laptop. So yeah, looking forward to building that. Okay, cool.